In March 2023, a welfare check was requested for a little boy named Noel. Officers arrived at a house on Wisteria Drive in Everman, Texas, a small, quiet community just south of Fort Worth. They knocked. A woman answered. They asked about her son. She said he was fine. She said he was in Mexico, living with his biological father. She said he'd been there since November. The officers left. 3 years later, FBI agents and forensic investigators returned to that same address, to the backyard, and spent 3 full days digging. What they found on May 15, 2026, confirmed what many had feared for a very long time. Noel Rodriguez-Alvarez had never left that house. He was 6 years old. He had developmental and physical disabilities. He had never been to Mexico, and the woman who told those officers he was fine, his mother, was already sitting in a Texas jail charged with capital murder after being tracked down on the other side of the world. This is Noel's story, and it belongs to him. Noel Rodriguez-Alvarez was born into a complicated world. He was 6 years old when he disappeared, though by the time anyone formally reported him missing, investigators would come to believe he had not been seen alive for months. He had developmental and physical disabilities. He depended on people around him in ways that made him particularly vulnerable, unable to advocate for himself, unable to walk out a door and ask a neighbor for help, unable to call anyone. A neighbor who knew the family later told a local news station that she had seen Noel. She remembered him. She said it was difficult knowing what had happened because she had seen him with her own eyes. A child with disabilities living in that house on Wisteria Drive. He had 7 siblings. His mother, Cindy Rodriguez-Singh, had 10 children in total. In the months before Noel disappeared, according to investigators and witness accounts that would later emerge, she had allegedly described the boy in alarming terms to people around her, calling him evil, saying he was possessed, reportedly expressing fear that he would harm her newborn twins. None of what investigators would later allege had been visible enough or reported loudly enough to trigger intervention before it was too late. On March 20, 2023, the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services contacted Everman police. Family members had reported they hadn't seen Noel since October 2022. 5 months earlier, officers went to the house. Cindy Rodriguez-Singh told them Noel was with his biological father in Mexico. She said he had been there since November. She was calm. She had an answer. The officers, with no immediate evidence to contradict her, had limited grounds to push further. They left. But something about the case stayed with investigators. Child Protective Services and police continued looking at it. And the more they looked, the more the story unraveled. Over the days and weeks that followed, the explanation for Noel's whereabouts changed. She had told some family members he was with his biological father. She told others he was with an aunt in Mexico. And then, in what investigators described as one of the most alarming details of the entire case, she allegedly told her own mother that she had sold Noel to an unknown woman in the parking lot of a Fiesta Mart grocery store. Everman police investigated every version of that story. Each one collapsed. There was no evidence Noel had ever gone to Mexico. There was no evidence of any such transaction. There was, investigators concluded, no version of any of those stories that was true. On April 6, 2023, Everman Police Chief Craig Spencer held a press conference. He said the investigation had shifted. Noel was no longer being treated as an endangered missing child. He said investigators believed the boy was likely dead. While authorities were working through the investigation, something had already happened in that backyard on Wisteria Drive. Just weeks before the welfare check, in early March 2023, Cindy Rodriguez-Singh had paid to have A new concrete patio installed in the backyard of the house. A patio she paid for herself, at a property she did not own. When investigators later obtained a warrant and brought cadaver dogs to the property, the dogs alerted two areas in the backyard. They alerted to the soil directly beneath the concrete patio. They also alerted to a carpet that had previously been used as the floor of a makeshift shed that once stood in that exact same spot before the patio was poured over it. That carpet had been removed and discarded in a nearby dumpster. Investigators dug up the concrete. They ran further tests. At the time, in 2023, they did not find Noel's remains, but the dogs had already told them something was there. That case went quiet publicly for a period, but it never went quiet for the people working it. 2 days after the welfare check on March 20th, 2 days after officers knocked on that door and accepted the story about Mexico, Cindy Rodriguez-Singh, her husband Rodriguez-Singh, and 6 of her other children boarded a flight. They flew to India. Noel was not with them. An Amber Alert had been issued for Noel. A felony warrant followed shortly after for both Cindy and Rodriguez-Singh, abandonment and endangerment of a child. By October 2023, Cindy was formally indicted for capital murder. A federal arrest warrant came in November, and she was gone. For almost 2 years, investigators tracked leads. Authorities believed, based on internet searches found during the investigation, that she had traveled to India. But finding someone who doesn't want to be found in a country of over 1 billion people takes time and international cooperation on a level that most cases never achieve. In July 2025, Cindy Rodriguez-Singh became the 537th person added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. A reward was offered, eventually rising to $250,000. 1 month later, in August 2025, she was located and arrested. The FBI worked alongside Indian authorities, Interpol, the U.S. State Department, and the FBI's attaché office in New Delhi. FBI Director Kash Patel announced the arrest publicly, noting it was the 4th 10 most wanted fugitive captured in 7 months. Cindy's other children were returned to the United States and placed with relatives. Her bond was set at $10 million. If this case matters to you, and it should, please subscribe right now. We cover cases exactly like this one because children like Noel deserve to be remembered, and their stories deserve to be told carefully and fully. The button is right below. Now back to Noel. While sitting in Tarrant County Jail awaiting trial, Cindy Rodriguez-Singh wrote letters. In those letters, portions of which were later reported by local news outlets, she described herself. She wrote, "I'm not a psycho person." In April 2026, a judge evaluated her competency to stand trial. The determination: she was not competent to proceed at that time. She was ordered to a state mental health facility for competency restoration, a legal process designed to ensure a defendant can meaningfully participate in their own defense before trial can begin. The capital murder charge remains. The case has not gone away. Prosecutors have been clear. They intend to see it through. Tarrant County District Attorney Phil Sorrells said in a statement, "Noel was a child whose life mattered. He deserved protection, care, and love. Instead, he became the victim of an unthinkable crime. We owe that to Noel and to the people of Tarrant County." In May 2026, FBI agents and investigators returned to the house on Wisteria Drive. 3 years had passed since the cadaver dogs first alerted to that backyard. 3 years since the concrete patio had been poured and then broken apart. 3 years of a case that had traveled from Everman to India and back. That had put a woman on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, that had brought an international extradition to a Texas jail. This time, investigators spent 3 full days digging. a coordinated excavation, FBI, Everman Police, Tarrant County District Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Department, and the Medical Examiner's Office, all present on that street. On Thursday, May 14, 2026, authorities announced that human remains had been found. On Friday, May 15, 2026, the Tarrant County District Attorney confirmed the identification. Dental records. The remains were Noel Rodriguez-Alvarez, the child who had not been seen since October 2022, who had been reported missing in March 2023, whose mother had told officers he was in Mexico, whose backyard had spoken to cadaver dogs 3 years before anyone could prove what it was saying. He had been there the entire time. There are two things happening simultaneously in this case, and both of them are true. The first, the system failed Noel before March 2023. A 6-year-old child with disabilities was not seen by family members for 5 months before anyone formally reported it. Whatever was happening in that house during the final months of his life, the full picture of which has not yet been presented in a court of law, happened in a space where no intervention arrived in time. The second, the system eventually did not give up. Everman Police, the Tarrant County DA, the FBI, they tracked this case across 2 years and across the world. They put Cindy Rodriguez-Singh on the 10 most wanted list. They secured an international extradition. They came back to that backyard in 2026, and they stayed for 3 days until they found him. The cause and manner of Noel's death have not yet been formally determined by the Tarrant County Medical Examiner. That work is ongoing. What has been determined is this: he was there, he was 6, and he had disabilities that made him entirely dependent on the adults in his life to keep him safe. Everman Police Chief Al Brooks issued a statement the day Noel was identified. He said, "I would like to tell him, rest well, little man, we'll take it from here." There is a park in Everman now dedicated to Noel Rodriguez-Alvarez, a place with his name on it, in a community that remembers him. The trial, when it comes, will determine what the law says happened. That process is still ahead. But what the backyard on Wisteria Drive finally told us in May 2026 is the thing that Noel could never say for himself. He was there, he had always been there, and he was not forgotten.